Welcome everyone to Daily Hope. My name is Ryan Pfeiffer and we are in 1 Samuel chapter 25. But as I always do, before we jump into the passage, I just want to give you a moment to pause and reflect a little bit. Has anyone offended you or hurt you or insulted you in any way in the last week or the last month or maybe even in the last year, and yet it's still lingering with you? Or are you in a conflict with someone right now? And maybe God has something to say to you through 1 Samuel 25. This passage records a conflict between Nabal and David. Nabal is a wealthy landowner and he's got tons of cattle. And David, with his mighty men, has been protecting Nabal's cattle from other raiders. And all David asks for in return is some basic provisions, some food, some water, some wine for his men. Nabal, being a selfish and greedy person, refuses to honor David's good work with these provisions, and he blows David off. And this offends David. You could say he gets triggered, he gets hijacked, and in a full-blown tantrum, he grabs all his mighty men and he marches down with the intent to kill Nabal and all the men on his property. Now, enter Abigail, Nabal's wife. She just shines like a bright star in a dark night in this whole passage. She marches out to meet David armed with only some food, some good judgment, and a courageous heart. Let's read the moment these two encounter each other. Beginning in verse 29, Abigail says to David, "Even though someone is pursuing you to take your life, the life of my Lord will be bound securely in the bundle of the living by the Lord your God. But the lives of your enemies he will hurl away as from the pocket of a sling. Now, when the Lord has fulfilled for my Lord every good thing he promised concerning him and has appointed him ruler over Israel, my Lord will not have on his conscience the staggering burden of needless bloodshed or of having avenged himself. And when the Lord your God has brought my Lord success, remember your servant." Now, David, listen to David's response, right? He could have been offended, upset, like, "Oh, who are you to tell me how to act?" But listen to what he says. "Praise be to the Lord, the God of Israel, who has sent you today to meet me. May you be blessed for your good judgment and for keeping me from bloodshed this day and from avenging myself with my own hands. Otherwise, as surely as the Lord, the God of Israel lives, who has kept me from harming you, if you had not come quickly to meet me, not one male belonging to Nabal would have been left alive by daybreak." You just gotta love Abigail's pluck, her courage, but also David's humility and his ability to allow Abigail to challenge him and correct him. And instead of getting defensive, he allows her to correct him and he takes it to heart. Even more importantly is how God uses Abigail to remind David of a key lesson that God has been teaching him in this wilderness season of his life. That David is to trust God above everyone else and everything else for protection, provision, and for everything that he needs in his life. And right here, David is fully hijacked and offended by Nabal. He's been pushed to the limit by Saul constantly chasing him down. He snaps and he reacts and charges out to do something that he would have regretted. I don't know about you, but I can relate to that. Have you ever had someone offend you or insult you and just make you want to rally your army and march out and put people in their place? Well, listen to what 1 Peter says. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 9. It says, "Do not repay evil with evil or insult with insult." Now, when we are insulted, it's just natural. We want to insult back. When people dish out fire at us, we want to fight fire with fire. And nowhere is that easier to do than on the freeway or in the surf lineup or maybe even on social media. When people say something that's hurtful, offensive, something that embarrasses us or contradicts us, it's so tempting to want to fire right back at them. But the Bible calls us to a different posture and response. Listen to this. 1 Peter 3 goes on to say, "On the contrary, repay evil with blessing, because to this you are called, so that you may inherit a blessing." The scriptures And the Spirit of Christ in us calls us to respond to the world in the opposite spirit in which it aggressively at times approaches us. The world approaches us with evil, with insult, with offense. And the Spirit of Christ calls us to respond in the opposite spirit in these moments. One of my great favorite quotes on this whole subject of how we respond when offended comes from Michael W. Smith, who I got this quote from Nick Gilmore, who turned me on to this interview where he talks about one of his life's greatest goals. Michael W. Smith, a Christian musician and Grammy winner, says this: "One of my greatest goals in life, and I think I'm getting there, is to put people in their place and show people they can't mess with me." No, I'm just joking. That would totally miss the point, but it's what we really in our hearts kind of believe. Listen to what he does say. "One of my greatest goals in life, and I think I'm getting there, is that I'll never ever be offended by anyone ever again." I don't think this means that we pretend like we're not being offended or insulted. It means we come in the opposite spirit, the Spirit of Christ, who on the cross said, "Father, forgive them. They know not what they do." Where's God challenging you to come in the opposite spirit with someone this week? God bless you and have a good week.